How are you? How are you feeling? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm about 3 tracks away from finishing my album.
That's
which is
exciting.
Pretty damn good. Yeah, it's a good feeling. I hadn't actually intended to write it as well. I've been doing some other production work and bits and pieces, and kind of like was a bit bored with Flux Pavilion. Bored is probably not quite the right word. More just like flat.
Yeah.
Like 10 years, I've just kind of run out of ideas. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I've got no more ideas. Maybe that's the end. I'm just going to put it to the side and just carry on working on music. And then, yeah, somehow it felt like by accident, I wrote a 16-track album because I was writing music, and I am Flux Pavilion. So obviously loads of music I write will be Flux Pavilion music.
Right.
But so it wasn't like, I need to write an album to achieve this or do this. It literally is just the most organic thing and stress-free as well. It's all come together. My manager's like, here's your hand in date. And I'm like, here's the album. It's there you go. I'll work on now.
Wow. I mean, so there's a lot in what you just said, I think, because first of all, what is that feeling like when you, prior to realizing you had an album in you and it was coming together, you know, you were saying, maybe I'll just hang it up. Maybe Flux Pavilion's done, run out of ideas. Was that a scary feeling, or did it just sort of feel natural at the time and you were all right with it?
I'd say quite liberating. I think I felt like that for about 3 or 4 years, really. That might be overextending it a bit, but definitely a couple of years. I've just been kind of playing loads of shows and writing a few bits of music, and I'm just like, I don't actually know what I'm doing. Like, there's no intention. I'm not like doing this for any purpose other than to keep the universe happy, because this is what I'm meant to do, right? I'm an artist and I've got a career. I need to keep this going by any means possible.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, well, no, I think I'm done. Like, I've got no ideas. I've got nothing that I want to do with this. So, and I spoke to my manager and the team was like, yeah, Flux Pavilion might be over. I don't know. Like, I need some time. I need some time to just write and be an artist. Because, I mean, I never wanted to go touring as a DJ. And like I said, I never wanted to. It wasn't like an aspiration to be the new rock stars, really, DJs, to go out and do that and go to EDC and get involved in all this kind of like huge like live EDM experience. Like, that wasn't my dream as a kid. My dream was to slowly grow, like go mad in a basement with loads of synthesizers around me and just music.
And that was the dream. That was fun.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Flux Pavilion was born from. I feel like I got a lot of legs with the idea that I just wasn't really doing what anyone else was doing. Kind of following with the stream of things, like floating in the river. But I never really tried to be a part of the scene or the industry. I was just kind of doing my own thing. And then it kind of felt like over the past few years, it's probably about 3 or 4 years ago, it's like, oh, okay, I need to follow the scene. I need to follow what's going on, because it's getting completely out of my grip now, because I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not really following what everyone else is doing. So I'm going to end up completely on my own.
Right.
So, and then it's kind of like, what do I do there? I don't really want to follow what everyone else is doing, because I don't really like it. The whole sort of headbang dubstep thing it's fun to watch, but it's not really fun to write in the studio for me.
Yeah.
So then the obvious choice was to be like, maybe that's it. Maybe Flux Pavilion has created everything. Maybe I've done everything I was meant to with this brand and with this thing. I've got to move on to other stuff. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
What would the other stuff look like? Would it be a new musical project, or are there other things outside of music you think about as well?
No, musical stuff. There's a few bits and pieces that I'm doing. Like, this year, I'm going to be finishing 4 albums. One of them's the Flux album. Some of the other ones are secret things that I don't know if I'm allowed to. Not allowed, but it's kind of like, we're not making it obvious that Flux Pavilion's connected to.
Right.
And mainly producer work, basically. Like there's this band called Peng Shui, who are a 3-piece punk grime band. And they've been good friends of mine for ages. And their first album was awesome. And I was sat there drunk with them one night, just telling them all the things they could have done to make it better, basically. And they were like, well, looks like you need to do the second one because you've got lots of ideas. And I'm like, yeah, actually, let's do it, kind of thing. So now I'm writing the whole thing with them and we're going to record it and stuff.
That sounds great. Have you done a lot of work with live bands and like producing for bands?
Not drums. That's the only thing I haven't really done is record drums. So I haven't really done much band stuff, like working with another band, but I have been recording my own voice and guitars and bass guitars and all the kind of elements for years. Like that's how I started writing was I had an electric guitar and I just plugged it straight into my PC and would record it and then try and make it sound like it was a band, which is how I discovered electronic music. Actually, I lie. I have recorded bands. Around that era, I used to basically find local bands and persuade them to let me record them and then go and take loads of their stuff out and replace it with electronics so it sounded better quality.
Ah, that's interesting.
And then eventually, that was when I was around 16, 17. And then after a couple of years of that, I realized I didn't need other musicians. I could just get samples and
right. Well, if you're already looking at it as replacing what they did with something better that's electronic, then yeah, you're definitely on that path.
Using electronics to supplement stuff. So I'd take their drum, because I just wouldn't have recorded it very well, but I had some really good snare hits and kicks and stuff. So I'd just sort of go in and line them all up and fatten it up a bit. And that was kind of how I started being a producer, really. But by going around and producing just weird little bands and stuff from my hometown.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like if you were doing that at 16 or 17, I have to imagine prior to that, when you were even younger, you must have gotten into this at a fairly young age. Is that right?
Yeah, my first show was when I was 13. I played in a band, kind of played in a variety of bands, sort of played all the instruments, and there was only about 7 of us in my hometown that played instruments. So we were all in a variety of different bands with each other, playing different instruments and stuff like that. So it was all I did really, was just kind of go around and play music and think and talk about music.
So we're talking about a small town in the UK, is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
How small are we talking? Is it like, village size? How many people?
Definitely a town.
Yeah.
It's bigger now. I wonder what the actual population is. I think it'll probably be like 100,000 maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like there was pubs. We had about 8 pubs. So it was that size.
Sure, yeah. Extrapolate out from there, yeah.
Yeah, 8 pubs, 2 supermarkets, and about 4 hairdressers. And that's pretty much all you need.
That sounds about right. And am I right that Doctor P grew up in the same town, or was he kind of nearby?
Yeah, no, he was one of the 10 or 7, whatever number.
It's funny. I had him on the show a while back, and he was saying that he's still kind of living in a further out place, and he was saying you're always kind of trying to get him to move to London, and that he's very resistant to that.
Well, he moved back to the town, and it's like we went on this journey into the great wide world of like touring and doing stuff. And he's like, "Nah, I'm going to go back to this town." And I kind of haven't really spoke to him much since then. I see him every now and then, but yeah, it's definitely. I think I'm closing in on that now after 10 years of being in London and being like as connected as I want to be. Now it's just like, my music is all about me, really. It's not really about kind of being connecting with other artists so much. And if it is about connecting with another artist, it's someone that I want to know very well enough that they can come and live with me for 6 weeks. And we can work on a project. Like the sort of something about the new generation of like TikTok, I think is a really good example of we were going towards disposable. And now it's just everything's getting more and more disposable. And I feel like TikTok is the epitome of just like it started with Vine, I guess, and that was where I started disconnecting with kind of culture.
Yeah.
That's funny because I was like, oh no, I want to make something and it be real forever. Whereas now it's all about fast connections and quick moving and let's jump on it. And that's kind of what London's all about. And I don't really patch into it too much. I like to just sit on my own and take my time and take a year to work on something. Like this new band, Peng Shui, they were like, right, let's get it written and get it recorded and let's get it done in 3 months and then we'll put it out at the end of the year. And I was like, guys, if you want to write a good album, it could take us a year, it could take us 2. Slow down.
Yeah.
Let's start writing some songs. And in between sessions, let's have 6 weeks in between sessions so we can all just kind of lie around thinking about it and mulling it over. Like, I like to take my time on stuff.
Well, and I think that's sort of the classic model, right? I mean, if you look at sort of all the classic albums from your favorite bands over the years, I mean, if you read into the stories of that, yeah, it's all, they lived in a house for a year and a half and wrote an album. It's interesting, actually, now that you say it, I feel like other than electronic music, because electronic music, I think a lot of times you can hear somebody say, oh yeah, I wrote that in, a couple hours, and it becomes sort of this classic anthem track.
Nearly every song I write it's realized in a couple of hours, basically. I used to twiddle with stuff more and like, oh, let me change that chord sequence, let me do this. But in the first couple of hours, you're plucking out from the ether the song, what the song is, like the character of this piece of music and what it means for it to exist, basically. That always happens really quickly. And then to make that palatable and to expand on that, I think you need time. Sometimes running with it really quickly can be fun because you're just putting out this really raw thing that you've plucked out of the air. But I like to then just take that and sit on it. And I never change anything about it. I never really fundamentally change anything. I just kind of chip away at it and see what kind of directions it can go in. But if something about it isn't very good, if the chords aren't very good, or if my melody is not good enough, I'll write another song because that's the piece of music. What I found in those first couple of hours is the piece of music that I've written. And if it's not very good, then I'll write another one. It's like as simple as that, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, if we think about, some of your sort of really classic, the big anthem tracks of yours, would it be fair to say there's not a bunch of other versions of them sitting around that, the ones that make it out as Flux Pavilion songs are kind of that pure idea?
Pretty much, yeah. There's iterations. Like I Can't Stop. The first iteration was the bass line, the do 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 do, that with the chords and the vocal and everything, all the drums. It was all there. And I remember playing it Doctor P. He was like, "There's something missing. There's just one thing that's missing." And then I added in this extra lead that goes up. So it's do 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 do. That lead, I added that in to gel it all together, and then that became the song. So everything else was everything else was what I'd written in a couple of hours, really. And then I was just trying lots of other little bits and pieces to try and gel it together, and I found that lead and was like, there you go, that song's finished now. So it's bits and pieces like that. It's kind of fundamentally the song didn't change, but really, if you actually listen to it without that, it does sound like a completely different piece of music. Like that really
it's
does.
So interesting how something that small, just one tiny element, can totally change the feel of a song, right? That's something that I still haven't. It's hard to put your finger on, right? In terms of the explanation of why that's the case. That it's these little elements, and it's not even something that somebody listening to it from the outside might pick up on, right?
Well, it's the thing that you said, it's hard to put your finger on, but like that is my job. Yeah. Basically, that is the thing that I do, and it is the thing that I'm good at, is closing my eyes and listening and either hearing that bit and pushing it up in the mix or not hearing it and then trying to find it. I think that is something that I really hold on to in my production, is basically feeling your way through it and trusting what you're feeling. So if you're like listening to it, sometimes you could be listening to a song you're working on and it's like, oh, that snare doesn't sound right. Oh, I need to move these hi-hats a bit. All of that stuff is kind of pointless. Really what you need to be doing is listening to it and going, I'm bored now.
Yeah.
I'm bored. So now I need to do something. Or just like, this is making me feel a little bit tired and a bit like they're like, I haven't seen a blue sky in about 4 days. And maybe a bit like my hometown makes me feel. And then listen to that and go, that's great, actually. I want to focus on that more. Right, how does my hometown make me feel? I'm going to go there and then think about it and then come back and make my piece of music feel like that. Or you go, no, I want it to make me feel like Seattle makes me feel. And then you think about how that makes you feel and change all those bits. Like, I think that once you've got the core composition written down, all the rest of what makes a record great is that, I think, the exploration into the feeling and then being really in touch with how things feel. So I travel around most of the time in my life just feeling loads of stuff all the time.
Well, and what you just said is really interesting to me, because that's almost like there's two sections, right? There's that initial couple hours of creation where thoughts and analysis are almost don't want that, right? And then afterwards, once you have it out there, then you sort of flip the switch, right? And actually start thinking about what you just did.
Yeah, I guess there's 3 stages. There's being completely like the open creative stage where you're just a conduit to the universe and you're just trying to, like, something's out there and you're trying to capture it, often quite frantically. Whereas like sometimes I'm in a session with people and they're just playing on the keyboard and I'm like, stop, shut up. What did you play? Record that in, go sit at the back of the room, give me 10 minutes. I've got an idea. Everyone I've got an idea. And it just, I get really gripped in it and I really like that. And that's the first bit. And then there's emotional analysis where you're really analyzing the feeling and the mood and what you're trying to say and just all the kind of like the levels of everything, not necessarily mixing, but just like the levels of the feelings that are there. I know that's incredibly hard for people to get their heads around because it is incredibly vague, which is why people say, have you got any production tips? And it's like, nah, because the large part of what I do is just this weird, vague thing that I've learned how to do.
Yeah, very individual.
Then the third stage is technical analysis, where you go, right, I found my character. I've dressed him in some lovely clothes that make him feel good. Now I need to like Photoshop it, basically. I need to make it perfect and pristine for the general public, which is a part of the process that gets smaller and smaller as each year goes. To the point now with some of the new album tracks, I opened it up and it was ready to be mixed. And it's just like, I've been working on this for like 3 months now, just doing little twiddly bits and pieces. In those 3 months, I have never heard anything I didn't like. So fuck it, I'm just going to bounce it and send it off to mastering. I don't care anymore. I don't care about any of the things that could be in this project, any of the small mistakes, because I would have found them at some point and got rid of them. So I'm going to hope that there's nothing there that I've missed. And if I've managed to miss it after listening to this song 100 times, I can guarantee that the general public are going to miss it too.
Yeah, well, and that's liberating too, right? That's almost like another level of confidence or another level of sort of professionalism, I think, is when you can just trust in yourself enough to know that you just don't have to spend as much time and you don't have to worry as much about it, right?
It feels like ignorance more than confidence. But I've managed to produce the longest and best piece of work that I have in my entire life. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, man, you got to lean into that, I think. And it's interesting because we've talked a bunch already about how you kind of have this unique perspective. And you were saying that, at a certain point, you sort of felt like what you were doing didn't fit in with what a lot of other people were doing. And to a certain extent, I feel like it's always been like that. And I'm curious, I wanted to try to dig in a little bit about where that perspective comes from, where those influences come from. So, I mean, we talked about you grew up in a small town, you were playing in some bands with sort of a small community of people. Do you have a sense, if you think back, about what drew you to music in the first place? Like why that was what you latched on to?
I had a terrifying father, basically, who would consistently play really loud music and get really into it, and used to scare me. Like, he used to play Frank Zappa and listened to like 12-minute long solos and just like sit there with his face all scrunched up and just be feeling so much feeling. And I just be a little kid just like, what is this? This is terrifying me. I'm really scared. And like in the car, he'd just be screaming along to the Stranglers or Bowie or something like that. And he'd say things like, this is what my soul sounds like, or this is, if the universe could cry, then this would be the devil, or shit like that.
Holy shit. That's intense, man.
Yeah, he was a very intense man. He was just like, living his own wild life. So he'd always say weird shit like that. And I was a kid who just didn't understand any of it. But I was just, as I grew up a bit, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, music, this is a thing. This is totally a thing. I do like some of it. And just started, I got a little keyboard and just started kind of learning how to play and stuff. And I think, this is probably something that I need to explore more in therapy, is what happened there? Like why did I really get drawn into it? Because I'm not too sure. But now I listen to 12-minute long Frank Zappa solos with my face scrunched up, and I tell my wife that this is this is what
my soul sounds like. Yeah.
yeah, like that. I get it now. I do understand it. I mean, I'm going to try very hard to not understand it in such a complex manner in front of my own kids. Yeah. But there's something to be said I've held on to that as a really inspiring way to look at stuff. Really deep nonsense kind of like way of looking at things and just stepping outside your own experience. And just like the way I kind of talk about the difference between me, there's someone at a record label, and he was like, I can't remember what I wanted to do, but he'd said, it doesn't work like that. I think it was something to do with artwork. He was like, no, it doesn't work like that. And I was like, what do you mean it doesn't work like that? I could do it exactly like this. It could work like that. And we've realized the difference between us was he saw the world for what's there, and I see the world for what could be there. And it's just, I think I got that from my dad and his experience with music, where I just am consistently in my imagination all the time and just imagining the weirdest and wildest things. And kind of with music, I can make them exist, basically.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't like, but bass canon is a good example of that. The reason I've never done anything else like that is because I did it that once. I wasn't trying to make dubstep. I was basically taking the piss out of Doctor P. He'd just made Sweet Shop. And I remade Sweet Shop as best I could, and then put a really silly xylophone intro on it. And was like, look, I've made Sweet Shop again. And he was like, yeah, it's actually all right. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. So instead of having the duh, I put a glide on it. So it goes duh.
Right.
And that was it. I wanted to make something silly that would make him laugh. And then people were just like, oh, you can't put that out. You can't be called Flux Pavilion. You can't put that out. You can't make dubstep with singing on it. And like, there was all these things like, you can't do that. That's not how it works.
Right.
And it's just like, I think about my dad and how it just seems like he enjoyed if something wasn't allowed, that anti-establishment sort of punk in him, and especially creatively. If someone did something wild with their creativity. He just had so much respect for that, like a scary amount of respect for that. And that definitely rubbed off on me. And now I'm the same. I mean,
okay. So I have, there's a lot in what you just said. I have two armchair psychologist theories about that experience with your dad, and they're both probably off base, but I'm going to say them just because they occurred to me. One of which is what you just said, that your dad had so much respect for the people who were wild with their creativity, and in a way, I wonder if that was like a way of you trying to connect with your dad, right? It's sort of, if you became one of those people, like you saw his respect for, a certain kind of person, and you became that person,
Yeah, I've considered that, but I don't reckon that's the case.
Yeah. Well, here's my other theory, and this I think is more of a general childhood thing. Is I think when you're super young, kids don't have a lot of control in their lives, just in general. A lot of things are determined for you by your parents or by your school or whatever it is. And I think watching someone important to you, like your dad, have that experience and seeing the effect music could have on them, not consciously, but I feel like subconsciously for a kid, you sort of realize, oh, like this is a way, like this has power over people, right? And if I can figure out how this works, how music works, that's almost a way of getting some kind of control in my own life. And I'm not even saying that just about you, but I think that was true for me coming up too.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. I think there's a lot to digest with thinking about, why write music. I think I've never really worked out the actual inner workings to that question, because that sends me into an existential spin on why do anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, I have to because it is what I do.
Yeah. Well, I think especially I've been in one of those recently, right? I think a lot of DJs and producers and just creatives have, during quarantine and during these weird times when sort of the system, the backbone of what we do has really been flipped upside down. I think a lot of people are sort of asking, why am I doing this? And what is this all for now that a lot of the trimmings have been taken away, Well,
for me, like I've been gifted the exact life that I want. Basically, I now don't have to travel and I get to write music all the time, which is pretty much what I always wanted. But then that being said, there is something really special about performance that I'm really looking forward to getting back into. But I think where performance went wrong for me was doing like 150 shows in a year, and none of them felt special. They felt, each one, you feel this connection with all these other humans, but it's like you don't have enough time to make your show a show. It just starts to, you can do that for a year, but then you need time to build a new show, build a new album, build some new work. And it got to the point where, I think I'm just going out and playing songs that I've been playing for years, and there's nothing new. And I'm just like, this feels absolutely pointless. I'm not bringing anything new to the table. How much longer can I keep going playing these same old songs?
Right.
Basically, I haven't had time to actually sit down and refresh what I'm doing as an artist, like my art, effectively. And that is what felt pointless. It wasn't the kind of, what am I doing in music in general? Because that doesn't really matter. It's kind of like, as long as I'm doing it, as long as I'm doing something, it feels like I have a value. And it's like, I don't want to unpack that much more, I don't think. There's a point where analysis becomes, way too heavy, and you start trying to really work stuff out. I think I did that with Flux Pavilion around the Tesla album. I was trying to really work out what makes Flux Pavilion good. And I've now just reverted back from all of that stuff that you could watch any interview in that period, and I talked about energy a lot. There's a lot about energy and still about the feelings and all this kind of stuff, but I was really trying to get it down to an art so I could just turn it on. But now it's just like, oh no, it just is a thing that I do as a human, I'm a unique creature.
Yeah.
And put me in a room with some instruments, like after a while, it will sound a bit like this. Like it is as simple as that. And that's true for any other human being. I think I do definitely have a talent for hearing things in my brain. And then now I have the requisite skill set to make those things exist. But it's like people always want to find their sound, but they do that by, it's kind of like you find your sound, but you've only ever listened to other people's music. Ever. If you haven't really started writing your own music, you have no idea what it sounds like, and you can't work it out until you start writing it. And you won't even know. You can feel that you're writing your music. And then over years, you develop a style. But it seems to be a thing that new producers are really addicted to. It's just like, how do I find my sound? What's my thing? And it's like, if it doesn't exist yet, how the fuck are you meant to know? Sit around and write music for the rest of your life. And you might find out, and you might not. Write music forever. And then on your deathbed, listen to everything that you've written, and that's your sound, basically. As long as you write honestly, then that's what music from your brain sounds like. It's kind of,
That's fucking beautiful, man. I love that you said that. And it's, okay, so I think of you as somebody who does have a sound, a signature sound or a perspective, whatever you want to call it. I think, people think of Flux Pavilion and it's sort of this identifiable concept, whatever it means to them. But, talking about the young artists and encouraging people to be unique and do their own thing, find their own sound, whatever that means. How did it, for you at the start, when you were sort of coming into the scene and people didn't know you yet, and you had these kind of crazy ideas and songs that maybe didn't fit in with, the bigger establishment of what was going on. What was the reaction to you from the scene, and sort of how did you get established there at the start?
Well, firstly, they weren't crazy ideas to me. And I think that is a fundamental point, is you could come up with something that's absolutely groundbreaking. You won't know, because it will just be the same old boring shit that you've thought of forever, because we all just do the same thing over and over again. We're only really capable. That's why collaboration is important, because you start to get inspired by other people's fundamental ideas. But you're only capable of so much, really. And by stopping yourself, by thinking, oh no, this is a bit boring, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because you might find it boring because you're living with it in your head. But the rest of the world might be like, I've never heard anything like this. And the truer and truer you get to what's in your head, the more and more people are going to be like, this is absolutely insane. I've never thought anything like this before could exist. Is because it's completely individual to you, but you're never going to feel like it's exciting. I think that's a really important thing to dispel. You're never going to be there like, man, I've made something so new, it's going to change the world. If you do think like that, someone will be like, yeah, dude, that's Tame Impala. Someone will be done there. So I think I was just writing, I was trying to write dubstep basically with the means that I had. I quite like melodies, like catchy melodies and stuff. So Got to Know was the first one that I did. People just kind of started playing it.
But there wasn't a lot out that sounded like that at the time, right?
Well, it was a bit of a mistake. That one was how I discovered my signature sound, I guess, because I made this melody. I found the You Got to Know hook in a sample pack somewhere, and then found this melody that runs with it, and basically turned it into a song with this sound. It was like a low bass sound. Sent it to Casper, I think, and he was like, nah, I don't like it. So then I changed it to a screechy sound, and then I sent it to someone else. I can't remember who, maybe Excision. He was running Rotten at the time, and he was like, nah, I don't like it. And I was like, well, what the fuck do I do with this shit then? And then I unmuted the previous sound so that both sounds were playing at once. And then was like, oh shit, that's good. and then sent it to Doctor P and was like, let's release this on Circus. This is actually great. And that was how I discovered it. It wasn't any unique thing. I just accidentally unmuted a thing. It was like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then I explored that a bit. Then it was like I did my Gold Dust remix and Cracks remix. I was just trying to do the same thing. Like, oh, if I have a fundamental bass sound and then some chords and then a lead sound, and then I move the chord and I keep the bass sound the same, and then a lead comes down. If I mess around with the structural composition of these three sounds, like I did with Got to Know, what can I discover? And that's how Cracks came about, because I then did a little lead line, but then had the other things kind of going underneath it. Gold Dust, I switched it up and had the chords as a call and response. So I was just messing with those elements. And then I Can't Stop was like, it was just a guitar riff in my mind. And I was just really enjoying putting trichords in a riff, because you can't really do that. I couldn't anyway. You could play power chords, but to do complex chords in such a quick riff, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then was just messing with the elements there. And really fundamentally, it was just the discovery that I could have two sounds playing at once. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me explore that. And then that has become the sort of the fundamental of what that Flux Pavilion sound is just me experimenting with how much can I have going on at once, and it's still become one cohesive blob. And then you move on to other times where I've redone it in the future, so like my Thief remix and the Recess remix, and now it's less about the depth compositionally, it's width, and I'm just trying to make that one sound as big as possible and have as many elements combined into this one huge sound. So it's like,
that's a really interesting way of writing, I think, is that I think of your songs that way a lot, that it's kind of this one almost like monolithic thing that's built up out of a lot of smaller elements, right? And so it's like, generally like a fairly simple, like core melodic idea. And correct me if you don't agree with this, but like a fairly simple sort of core melodic idea that's just like blown out and just pushed so far to this kind of maximal extent. But when it's just an interesting thing to think about, taking a lot of small things, putting them together all to execute sort of one primary idea.
Yeah, I mean, where I actually got the idea from when I started exploring it more was I was studying orchestration at university. It was like part of my composition course that I was doing. And the way that you put it was like, you've got these, you're orchestrating, you're taking, so orchestration is like someone would obviously say it way better, but my understanding of it, what we did was we took a piano piece and then we orchestrated it for an orchestra. We took that piece, that composition, and then we decided what notes, what instruments in an orchestra were playing what notes. So it was sort of like the stuff he was teaching us was flutes sound like this, and they have a frequency range here. Don't ever double flutes with piccolo flutes because it sounds like shit. Don't ever have your cellos being, your violins go lower than your cellos or something like that. It was all these rules, and you just believed him because it was like, well, yeah, an orchestra is an orchestra, isn't it? I guess they've been studying and learning about all this stuff for hundreds of years. So it's just like you can just accept that, yeah, the flutes aren't going to sound good if you do this with them. And I found it really interesting that there were rules that you could abide by, because I'm an electronic music producer. So there aren't really that many rules that I've learned yet. 10 years later, I do know a couple, but it's like generally you can kind of do harmonically whatever you want. So that was, I found really interesting to be like, well, what if I take electronic production like this and start looking at all the smaller elements and then imagining the sum of like being greater than the sum of its parts, basically. I could have some shit sounds. I'm not that good at making all these really crazy bass sounds, but I can write a chord sequence and then I can use like sustaining notes through the chord sequence to create tension and all this kind of stuff. Like I never really know. I can probably explain what I did a lot more now because I've learned more about composition over the years, but it's more this kind of feelings where I'm just like, oh, if I move that MIDI note there, it feels a little bit like I'm tensing my arms. And if I move that MIDI note there, it feels a little bit like I'm tensing my legs. So if I do them together, then it feels like I'm tensing my whole body, or I'm gritting my teeth and just thinking about feelings, basically. And then, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up composing. I would just write music and then I'd just feel things and be like, a lot of it was visual more than feeling. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, this is like a dragon. It's all fantasy based, always fantasy based. So it's like, this is Zelda. This is Link going off to save Zelda from Ganondorf. And this is the moment. And then, like, that's what Cracks was. Cracks was Link riding towards a volcano that's erupting with trying to save Zelda, basically. In my mind,
you were like
the whole time
soundtracking it. Have you done any? I mean, because that's just making soundtracks. Have you done any soundtrack stuff? Is that something you'd like to get into?
Well, that's why I went to university, because I wanted to study music for moving image. There's a Massive Attack song that plays. I think it's Angels, and it plays in the film Snatch. And it always just seemed so perfect. Such a perfect moment. It's not even like Snatch. I do love that film, but I do too. I think I probably could pick some more poignant moments in cinema, but that was the bit where I was like, fuck yeah, this is great. I love the way these work together. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to write music for films, basically. And so that was the trajectory that I thought I was going on. And then I'd play guitar and playing in bands and thought, maybe I'll be in a band or something like that. Being an electronic producer was not what I expected at all.
Sure.
It's like, and I think that has aided the uniqueness of the act of Flux Pavilion, because it was not born out of any intention to get involved in EDM at all. It just, I had all these other dreams and aspirations, and now that's why after all this time I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing some of the other things that I wanted to do when I was 16, because Flux may have run its course, and now obviously accidentally written a Flux album because I was cut it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think I can't remember what the question was. I meandered away from it. But
oh no, it's good. That's what this show is all about. Yeah. I mean, it makes me think about, you were talking about how there wasn't this idea to be Flux Pavilion when you started Flux Pavilion, right? And I wonder about the early days of the dubstep scene in the UK, right? Because in the US, obviously we talk about that dubstep comes from the UK. It came over here. It sort of metamorphized into something a little different and blew up in this crazy way. But, when you were first getting into it, am I right that the scene was still fairly small and still fairly underground, right?
Yeah, I came in at the end of that. So I would probably say that Flux Pavilion was the death of real dubstep. Because I've never wanted to call myself dubstep.
Yeah.
Never did then. I liked it for a bit. Like proper dubstep, was really into it. And then what I was writing felt like hybrid drum and bass at 140 BPM. Like I was always more into drum and bass, like jump up stuff. And then it just got picked up, and dubstep happened and bro step happened. And then I just was always dragged along with all of that. And I was the whole time, I was like, I use the word dubstep because it makes sense, but I don't want to be a dubstep artist. I like just electronic. My real upbringing in electronic music was more Square Pusher and Venetian snares and Aphex Twin and the kind of the more out there. So I never really wrote anything like that because it took me more towards drum and bass, and it acts like noisier and kind of is more sort of neuro funk, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
They call it now. It led me there. But yeah, that was how I viewed myself as a writer. It was more like these guys that, I don't know, at some point maybe I'll dress up as an Oompa Loompa and call myself like Mrs. Wonka and be playing breakcore or something like that.
I would love that, man.
That's what I thought my electronic music kind of career might end up being, but really I was going to play guitar and or be a producer or something like that. So yeah, I think that aided, again, there's another thing that sort of set me apart from everyone else, because I was just turning up with blue hair and really crazy trousers and opening my set with bass cannon. And it just wasn't like anything that had currently existed in dubstep.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to me to think about how music gets recontextualized by depending on who's listening to it and sort of what the situation in the era is. Was it strange for you, you know, coming from where you came from, having the attitude you did, then starting to come over to the US and tour heavily here and see your music really take off here, but have it sort of be connected to that bro step movement and sort of reinterpreted by a crowd who maybe didn't have the same perspective on the music that you did?
Yeah, it's quite annoying, if I'm going to be honest. It was quite annoying that for certain periods to sort of be doing the work that I thought I was doing and then be regarded as trash. Like, oh yeah, that's really part of that dubstep trash. And be like, oh, hang on. Firstly, dubstep is like fucking awesome for what it is. Like, I know there's some crap dubstep. We had a really bad period. But that was the death of dubstep, the word, was because shit dubstep was being made. That I do not blame anyone for coming in, stepping into the dubstep room and being like, this is absolute shit, because it was. Yeah. There was a point where then I was playing house and experimenting with all other stuff because dubstep has got really bad. But like dubstep for what it was before and then whatever we turned it into, there was some really interesting, like fascinating stuff. And it was annoying to see it be tagged as lowest common denominator. Again, I don't blame people thinking that because there was so much shit, but like it got shat on a bit too much, I think. And then there was so many like really great artists that just kind of got lost in it. And I felt like that too. I felt like I was sort of always, I really wanted to get away from dubstep, but I didn't want to write anything else. And that's been, I guess, a difficult thing throughout my career. Is like, I don't really want to be regarded as like an EDM, putting on a cape, jumping around on the decks, and not like, I like the show and everything. Like I do, I'm a fan of big shows, but it's like, if you're not bringing any creative or musical like merit to the act, it's not for me. I could appreciate that other people like all sorts of stuff, so I'm never really that bitter about it. But for me, it's been really important that the music's actually really, really solid and really creative and really interesting. It can also be dumb as well. It can also be dumb and stupid and weird at the same time. But it's like you can do really interesting stuff within this kind of realm of dubstep, and that's kind of what stuck me with it. Is like, I don't want to be regarded as like not being musically creative. That's not very nice. But also, I don't just want to give up on something that I'm really interested in just because of something that isn't about me. And that was kind of what I really started to hold on to more. I was like, you know what? I know they're talking about dubstep and the world that I'm from, but that isn't me. That isn't me, and that isn't what I do. So I should probably not take this to heart and just carry on doing the thing that I am doing. And at some point, if I keep going on my trajectory, then in 20 years' time, someone will just listen back to what I did in this era and go, oh, yeah, that was cool, because they don't know about all this shit that everyone's talking.
Right.
All this fucking bullshit that's on Twitter and all these flame wars and stuff. Like, music lives through it all. So it's just like, if I just keep doing my thing and then I can recontextualize myself, and then that will bring all of my back catalogue into line with what I was always trying to do in the first place, basically. Like, I'm always quite confident that if you do listen to my music there's probably a couple of tracks, maybe some suspect tracks in there, a couple of remixes, but generally you listen to anything that I do, I've always been happy with it. And some of it might have happened in a weird era where it's like, oh yeah, no, this is when Bro Step was around. But it's just like, compare what I was writing then to what I'm doing now in a different era. I always feel like it matches up. And that was something that was always important to me. Is like, let's not ditch everything just because it's getting hated on. But also, it's not a nice feeling to be a part of getting hated on when I'm just like, fuck man, I've worked my ass off. And I'm sitting there and sometimes I'm just like, fuck, this is really interesting. I've done something that I never knew could happen. Like me and Doctor P did a track called Fuckers.
I love that track.
It's so fucking weird. And it's like an Irish jig with a massive sub. I remember making it. Doctor P was like, nah, we can't do this. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what we should do. And yeah, it was stupid. And you could put it alongside loads of other dubstep and kind of be like, oh yeah, this is just a couple of guys fucking around who don't really know what they're doing. But it's like, no, I knew exactly what I was doing. I laboured over that groove and making it sound like that, like I wanted it to be exactly like that. And it's kind of like, yeah, I think people looked at EDM and DJs as just people who were kind of like half-assing their way through it, downloading a couple of preset packs, being a DJ, getting loads of money, not really putting any effort in. And the thing that was frustrating to me is like, I've been putting a lot of effort in since day one. I think about everything that I do all the time. And if it's weird and like strange, even bass canon, like there was a point to that. I wasn't just like making something because it was easy and this will get me some fans. Right. It was like, this is so silly, this kalimba intro, that I have to do this. And it was like, at the time, it was really important to me. And I think, it's been at times tiring to sit and endure the hate that electronic music in general, I think, gets. I don't think that's a unique experience to me. I think that sort of comes with being part of something that everyone's talking about at the time.
Yeah, well, and I think you're right about that. And I think there's sort of two sides to that recontextualization that we're talking about, right? Because I think about, if we take the example of, you make I Can't Stop, and then years down the road, it gets used by Kanye and Jay-Z, right? In a totally different context that sort of gives the song sort of a new place in culture or a different space. And all of a sudden something you made is being wildly reinterpreted from where it started. What was that experience like? And did that give you any kind of new perspective or new thought about sort of your place in music or how far or what you can do with music?
It was a lot and not a lot at the same time. It's just like such a fundamentally wild thing to happen. But it didn't feel like it recontextualized me in the spirit of what we were talking about. It didn't feel like, wow, I'm big now. It's just like, oh, cool. That's cool that something like that can happen with a song. Sweet. I'm going to write some more songs because what else could happen? And one thing I was saying to my manager the other day, it was like, you can write music and you can be an artist and stuff to try and capture something that's happened, that something that's popping off, like as a generational thing. Like Excision, for example, known him since day one. He actually signed one of my first ever tracks. Absolutely love him. Like, even though I said I'm not that big a fan of the headbang thing, I love watching him do his thing. It's awesome. Lost Lands is astounding, and it's like always really proud of him. It's not for me. I don't want to do that, but it's just like he has completely touched an entire generation of music lovers with this thing that he's kind of created. I know there's loads of other things that play into it, but Excision's like the core. He was there. He inspired me to get into dubstep. He's been there literally since the early days of everything, and he's still there now. And I think that is really impressive. And like, I love it. And I just can't even imagine doing something like that myself. Because on the flip side, there's capturing everyone's attention and doing this big thing. And for me, it's always more about worming your way into one person's life, into someone, like writing something that's really unique and special to you, and then other humans around the world picking it up and being like, this is mine forever. Oh, this really matters to me. And I think those like small connections are, I think they're really exciting, because like I can write a song and I could be like, everyone could hate this apart from one person, and that person could be the next Quentin Tarantino. Imagine what could happen. It's like, I don't have to please, I guess that's a better way of putting it. Excision, I think, is kind of like it's pleasing everyone in this grand thing. And I find that really intimidating. And I can imagine he finds it really intimidating. So it's like, what if I do this one thing and half of my fans hate it? Like, it's just that sort of thing where I'm just like, now I don't have to please everyone. I just have to, I don't know who I have to please, but it's like I want to just make something that feels organic and unique and honest, and then other human beings somewhere in the world to pick that up and be like, this is something that I like, and this is for me, and it's as if I'm writing as a song for them rather than writing it for everyone, because that feels more fun to me, because it's just like, yeah,
well, absolutely. I mean, even, we won't dwell on this, but even that Kanye Jay-Z example, I mean, that's basically like the Quentin Tarantino thing you just mentioned, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I wrote that and it didn't change. It wasn't like, oh man, I'm going to write so many tracks that are going to be huge now. It's just like, wow, that thing that I did in my bedroom has touched some people that's created this thing. Like, awesome. I'm going to keep writing with nothing really in mind other than whatever I'm creatively driven to do in that period of time, and let's see what happens. Like, no one to please, and in that perspective you've got everything to gain, because if you're not really trying to achieve anything, you can literally have two of the biggest artists in the world hear your music and want to use it, and it's just like, yeah, that is pretty fucking intense. I've always played it down as like a, I was just doing my thing, writing music, because that is true. Yeah. It is true that I was just doing my thing and I wasn't really hustling or working towards it. But like, yeah, the fact that happened is pretty fucking insane. And I've got no words for it really. I'm just sort of now still sitting around playing around with my Eurorack and being like, I guess it opened the context of just being me can achieve all of these things that I thought I couldn't just being me. Like, I never thought I'd have access to Kanye West just sitting around as a student doing my thing, but I do through music basically. And it's like, that is so simple that it just makes life really fucking easy, because it means I just don't stress, because I'm like, oh, if this track doesn't do it, it might be the next one. And then simultaneously everything you're working on could fucking be the next national anthem, or like the Queen could love it, or I don't know. Right. Anything's possible as long as you just keep on cracking on writing music, and that is just makes choices so much easier, because the only choice is to keep writing really and see what happens.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. I just wanted to really quickly talk about the track you did with Major Lazer, Jah No Partial. And I guess I'm just curious, if I say that, sort of what pops to mind for you, what memories do you have of that song? Because that was another song for me that I remember when that came out, really sort of flipping everything on its head. And there was kind of no precedent for a song that sounded like that. And so I'm just wondering for you, what memories pop up?
That's another thing. I can't believe that fucking Diplo came round to my house. Now it's easier to believe because I sort of got to know him a little bit better, and I achieved some sense of fame to the point that puts me quite near Diplo. So it makes sense that we would hang out and work on something. But at the time, like, no, I didn't know who Diplo was. I just got an email from Diplo. It was like, hey, I do Major Lazer, and Pond de Floor had just been big. It was like, wow, this is big. And then I saw an advert of Diplo with BlackBerry on the TV, and I was like, well, okay, he seems like something. And now since then, I'm like, fuck, I should have been so much more excited. Not excited, but just like floored by the concept of this actually happening. But yeah, it's another example of just like my naivety, just like, oh, all right, yeah. I'm up for it. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And yeah, really, he'd sent me the parts, and I thought I'd ripped off Do or Die, because I'd done the same. Actually, I think I wrote Do or Die after it, but there's the same ascending, the ending. But well, Major Lazer starts with do 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 do, and then Do or Die ends with do do do. Like they both have the same thing.
Right.
I remember, so yeah, doing Do or Die, I was like, oh, I've just ripped off Jono Partial, but fuck it, I'll go with it anyway. But yeah, I just kind of did it and didn't really think anything about it at all. It was such a weird track that I was just like, cool, I think I really did write that one in a couple of hours, got that idea together. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I think there was a period of time where I was just writing, you know, I just was getting up and I had dubstep, whatever was happening in dubstep was just flowing through me so easily and readily that I was just coming up with ideas left, right, center, because it was just completely new and unique to me. So like that era, Gold Dust and Cracks and I Can't Stop, like I really didn't struggle to come up with those ideas because nothing like that existed. And I was just sitting there kind of being like, fuck, I can do loads of stuff at this tempo. And yeah, that was it. The Major Lazer track, the kick drum was in the stem that he'd sent me. The doom, 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 doom. That was just in the stem. And I was just like, oh, if I just put the snare on the offbeat, like this is 140, and then I'll just make a cool sound to go there. And it just came together like really easily. And I just, didn't overthink it, I guess.
Well, and I think that goes back to what you said earlier about the importance of collaboration too, because that pattern, that dun 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 dun, you know, Diplo, like his roots, people really started to know him when he was doing sort of Baltimore club inspired stuff, which has that pattern, and then to combine that kind of idea with something you're doing, and it kind of creates this weird hybrid.
So I guess here's the thing. I didn't know at the time, I didn't know what dancehall was. I didn't know what Jersey Club or whatever you just said. Was it Baltimore Club?
I said Baltimore, but I mean, you know, Baltimore, Philly, Jersey Club, it's all related.
I didn't know that existed. I didn't know who Major Lazer were, really. I didn't know who Diplo was. I didn't know anything. So I just did whatever I thought. Like there was none of this stuff informing any of my decisions because I was just completely ignorant to it all. And to say about Diplo, if I'd have known how big of an opportunity that was, I don't think I would have made a song anywhere near as good.
Yeah.
Because I'm really grateful for my naivety because I just didn't have a clue what the fuck was going on. And nothing was riding on it really. I just got sent these stems and I was sitting there still in university. Just like, yeah, Diplo came round to my house and he had to climb over bin bags to get into the house. Me and my housemates just never took our bins out. So we had these big piles of bags. And he like turned up and was like, oh, is this your house? yeah, come in. Come up. You have to sit on a camping chair because I only had two camping chairs in my room.
That's amazing.
I was like, yeah, I didn't know any of that stuff. So yeah, I didn't base it off of Jersey Club or like dancehall or any of that kind of stuff. So that's why it sounds so, and at the time, so fundamentally unique to anything else, because it was what I heard in my brain. I'm a unique individual like everyone else is. And it's like, sometimes I think we can all be a bit too informed of what's going on, what's hot, what's happening in EDM. Oh, this is really cool right now. Like if you remove yourself from absolutely everything, you're actually going to end up writing some really fucking weird, cool shit.
That's a big key right there. I'm glad you said that.
And that's what I did. I started removed. I started to become a bit more involved. And then I think my music got worse. There's like an era, probably like 2014 era. I feel like, I think I found myself writing what everyone else was. So I tried to break free of it. And that's where Tesla came from, that album. I was trying to break free of following everyone else. I was trying to write something unique to me. But then it all just became this like big old confused pot of stuff. I don't really know what I was trying to achieve because I was like, it felt like I was trying to prove something that I could write other music, but it wasn't really coming from my heart. It was more coming from my brain.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, and now after realizing that and just becoming older and just more bored, I suppose, or more, I just don't give a shit as much. that I'm just like, oh, fuck it. I don't know. People are like, oh, have you heard that new thing that this guy's doing? I don't know who they are. I don't know who you are.
Why are you talking to me?
I don't know why you're talking to me. I want to go play on the synth. Stop talking about stuff. Like when I go out for dinner sometimes with music. But it's like, oh yeah, have you heard this new record? And these guys are really killing it. Sometimes my manager's like, oh yeah, these guys did a stream and this is really hot right now. And I'm like, nah, I don't care. I don't like. And it's not because I'm bitter or angry. Like I do care. If I go and see the human, I'm like, oh, awesome, this is amazing. But I just like don't find any value to my creativity based on what other people are doing, because it ends up just convoluting everything and you just get really confused. And if I'm working on something, I'm like, oh yeah, this actually sounds quite a lot like that hot record that's happening right now with Charlie XCX and PC music. Yeah, you know what, maybe I can go a bit more like Sophie with this and do that. Next thing I know, I've just written a shit Sophie track.
Right.
So like, if I'd have gone down the path that I was on in the first place, then it would be a shit Flux Pavilion track at the very least. But it would be something. It would be something that's mine.
Yeah. Well, okay. So with all of that in mind, that kind of leads me to the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is Circus Records. And, I guess I'm interested if you have that kind of mentality of, not paying too much attention, not getting caught up in what's going on, what attracts you to an artist that you'd want to put out on your own label, and how do you find those people?
I find less and less people now. It used to be because I was pretty patched into everything for a while. So I'd always kind of just be hunting for the people that were making music that I wanted to play in my sets, basically. And then now, like stuff, there's just so much stuff everywhere. It finds it like you find an artist, you're like, they're cool. You talk to them, they're already talking to like 14 labels. It's like it feels like the innocence of people just kind of hanging out, writing a couple of songs and then just sending it to a label. Like that doesn't really exist so much anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a manager and everyone's taking it really seriously. So I kind of like, I don't happen across anywhere near as much music as I used to. So it tends to come these days through, we've got guys that work for the label who are just like way more clued in. And what we did, you'll notice there's a period with Circus where we didn't really release much music. And that's because me and Doctor P tried to tell everyone what to do. Basically, we were like, we're having success. We know what to do. Everyone, you need to listen to us. And it just didn't really work because then the other guys were just like, oh, no, I don't know. I don't know how to make this better. I became A&R. That's what an A&R guy does, fucking asshole. And then I signed to a major label and had to deal with A&Rs. And it was like, hang on, I did that exact same shit. Fuck. And then went around and apologized to everyone, mainly to it was like, I'm so sorry for thinking that I knew your music better than you. Like, that's stupid. And now the idea is we come across people that seem to be writing music because they need to. Like, that's the thing that attracts them, is writing some stuff. I normally listen out for something that's just a bit weird that I've never really heard before. Get to know them, and I like to have the step back approach of like, right, here you go. You do whatever you want and we'll put it out. And if it's not very good in 3 or 4 years, then you're not signed to the label anymore.
That's actually a pretty reasonable way.
Well, that's basically the deal that I've made for myself. I think that's what I do now with Circus. I just sort of say, give me a date and I'll give you a song. If 4 or 5 songs in, we get no one listens to them and everyone hates them, then I'm dropped. Like, that's just,
yeah.
I don't want to have a conversation about what song and what could be the perfect time for this and is this vocal going to get onto radio. Just like, I'm kind of done with that. I'll write something, we'll put it out, and if it all goes to shit, then it's my fault. Sorry.
Yeah.
That feels a lot easier. So I tend to take that approach with the label when I'm talking to the guys. Just like, honestly, this is a place where you can do whatever you want. And I think that's kind of what has made Circus a beacon of light for artists who end up settling with us because they go work with other labels and get. Sometimes there's really creative criticism, and I do. If someone asks me, "Hey, I really want to know about this. Can you talk to me about it?" Then I will forever, kind of thing. But in terms of an artist wanting to just do their thing, Circus has always just been a place where that can happen, because it's annoyingly rare in the music industry. If you're not running your own thing, you've got a boss, basically. You've got someone who's on top of you trying to tell you what to do and trying to move you into what they think you should be doing. Chances are they could be right. Chances are they could be wrong, though. Wouldn't you rather be right or wrong on your own terms? As an artist, I'd rather fuck everything up doing the thing that I wanted to do. And I'll be like, I'll learn my lesson then.
Yeah.
If everything fucks up because of some A&R made a decision, I'm just going to be bitter and angry at them.
And you'd never know what would happen had you made the decision yourself,
done the thing
right?
I wanted to do myself, basically, yeah. So that's what Circus was for, really, for a platform for that. And it continues to be that now. Yeah, a place where people can really do whatever they want.
I saw you posted about G-Buck the other day, and I just wanted to, I love G-Buck. I just wanted to shout him out as long as we were in that neighborhood, because, yeah, man, I was happy you guys were doing stuff together.
Yeah, well, he supported me on tour 2 times, I think, maybe 3 times. But he's an absolute gem and writes awesome music. I can't quite work out what it is that's made him. It's not like he's fallen into the cracks, but sometimes I hear what he does and I see him play, and I'm just like, why is he not everywhere and really big? It makes sense to me that he is of a level with all these other people that I'm playing these festivals with. And it's just like, but then that's just my opinion, and then maybe it's not the opinion of some other people. And the reason I tweeted about him is because I always felt it might be controversial to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I was with him, we were on tour, and blew up and was starting to play all these big festivals and stuff. And he was like, what the fuck is this shit? I've been doing this for fucking years. Like, I know this and I own this. This white guy has just made like 1 Jersey Club record and now he's the biggest thing ever. And it's just like, not often do us as artists talk like this to people because it's egotistical. You don't want to go on about stuff like that, but we do feel it sometimes. Sometimes I'll see another dubstep artist and I'll be like, why the fuck are they getting more plays than me? My stuff's, like, there's nothing you can really do about that. But there's something that stuck with me. It's just like, it's because I'm black, because I'm the black guy. They won't let me on the big stages. And as the years have gone on, I wonder more and more. I'm like, fuck, was he right?
I think he is right. I really do.
Yeah, it's a wild thing. I think about it all the time. And then what's been going on politically, it just like still makes me think about one thing I tweeted. What I realized was I was tweeting about race and being like, I've never looked at race and I've never viewed it as a thing. And I've always looked at people for who they are, basically. Race doesn't matter. And then I realized after I tweeted that a couple of days later, I'm like, fuck me, that's my white privilege right there. The fact that I'm able to ignore race. And all these people, like G-Buck tells me this, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, maybe it is, maybe it's not, kind of thing. Oh, well, I can ignore it because I'm white.
Yeah.
You have to ignore it, and that's so fucked up. And I think that's what is really beautiful that a lot of people are waking up to now. I don't know what to do with this information, but I'm starting to actually understand what like white privilege allows me. It doesn't mean that I can feel safe when cops are around. It does mean that, but I always used to think that it's like it's really specific. But no, it's like a much bigger thing that I can pretend race isn't a thing. I can pretend that racism doesn't exist anymore, or like we're getting better. But like black people can't. They can't do that. They can't pretend because they have to carry that with them all the time. And it's like, that was a really big thing that dawned on me and made me think about G-Buck again.
Man. I mean, that you're spot on with all of that. And I've been having a lot of conversations with people about, in the context of this civil rights movement that's been happening in the States and has gone global. Well, yeah, that too. That might be coming up real soon here. um, but, I try to look at it in the context of our little corner of the world in terms of dance music and DJs and all of that. And, it happens here too. It happens maybe even more here where you look at, festival lineups are all white when it's all based on music that comes from Black people.
It feels like such an intense thing to try and attack as well. Like it feels like it's so baked in to our entire existence as humans, like what we've created as white people, that it's just like, fuck, how do you dismantle this? And I think that's quite overwhelming, and it makes white people just kind of switch off and go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that. I'm just like, well, I don't know. Do we sign some more Black people? What do I do? What can I do? And I think just being introspective about me and my experience and carrying that information with me throughout my life, and having not kind of trying to go out there and be proactive, that is important too. But I feel like something that's really important, that's to me, is to actually really learn about myself so that my day-to-day actions can be proactive, rather than I've given some money to this charity, I've helped. It's like, sure, those things can help out, but it's like, how do I make my day-to-day life, every step and everything that I do, be proactive in helping what's happening in the world?
Well, that's the key, right? Is figuring out how to incorporate it into your daily ongoing life, rather than, because exactly what you just said, I think it's so tempting for people to say, oh, well, I donated and now I've done my thing, so now I can go back to just the way I was before and not worry about it. And that's the danger of it. That's how shit stays the same, basically.
It's scary to say that stuff about G-Buck and be like, oh, is what I don't want to hate on. I don't know anything about him.
And I think we're realizing too that it's not about necessarily an individual, right? And it's not about calling out this one person. It's more about sort of acknowledging this giant system that we're all a part of, and trying to figure out how together slowly we can start pushing that system and changing the way that system works.
I think that's why I haven't really tweeted about that directly on Twitter, because you only get 150, I don't know how many characters you get now.
Yeah, 280 or something, I don't know.
But it's not enough to put it into context. I feel like that's why I'm doing studio streams now. It's called From the Lab, and I stream from my studios so I can talk about music. I don't really talk about politics because it's just not really what Flux Pavilion does. But I want to talk about my music and be able to give it a lot more context than I can with a little interview here, so this is an opportunity to actually talk. And if I'd have said, oh yeah, he got really big because he's white and G-Buck didn't because he was Black, on a tweet, there's not enough context there for people to not see it for that, just those sentences. But being able to actually talk and just be able to state that it's about a much bigger thing, I find is something quite important. And it's something in society that we do struggle with, is because we have the ability to get information out really quickly, but it's in such small slices that we can't have good conversation and good discussion and good, be it about race or about music or about fashion or anything. It just feels like we're stifling ourselves with the potential for connection and communication on any level by how limited we've become by social media. And that's kind of I don't really get involved in social media and so much anymore. And if I want to work with an artist, I'll try and meet them and talk to them. And then once we've done that, then maybe we'll book some studio time. Maybe we'll hate each other. Who knows?
Right.
Just you can just get so much from slowing everything down and talking and and understanding. And I think it's something that I've been trying to live my life by. And that's kind of been my approach to the Black Lives Matter thing. It's just I want to really think about this and really be able to change my life and my kids' lives and my environment by actually not just looking at the 280 characters, getting that done, get the tweet out there, donate the thing. Cool, we're all good now. It's like, no, this is a really deep thing, deep set in the entirety of the human race, basically. And it's not, that can't be fixed with a couple of tweets. It can't be fixed quickly. It will take a long time to do, and it requires lots of care and attention and will be difficult. So it's like, right, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm going to sit and I'm going to think and I'm going to talk and understand. And then hopefully in 20 years' time, I'll be better, basically. You know, it's like, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the way I've been thinking about this.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I think that's the right way to be thinking about it. And I think I hope more people kind of take that example. And yeah, man, just in general, talking about long conversations and deep analysis and finding out that you might hate somebody. I don't hate you. This has been really fun.
Yeah, we've managed to. How long have we been talking?
Little over an hour. Yeah.
That's pretty good considering I never spoke to you before.
Yeah, I think we did great, man.
Yeah,
we went pretty deep. I want to end it just with something a little fun because I read somewhere that you like Dungeons and Dragons.
All things were actually in my hobby room, so I wonder if I can show you. This is my cupboard of shame. This is
yes. I like all of this.
And yeah, role-playing games and fantasy in general. I'm kind of like, be reading loads of really deep fantasy books, and
that's my thing 100%, man. I have a group, we play every week. Like it's a big thing. So anytime I meet somebody else who's into that, I just like to talk about that because other than music, that's kind of the only thing I like to talk about. Yeah,
well, I've found that what I said about Link riding it towards a volcano is where I got the inspiration for Cracks. Just like what the feeling I was trying to evoke. I did that with Gold Dust, I Can't Stop, into like Blow the Roof kind of EP. And then I felt like I'd done it. I was like, I've done this now. Because really, what I've realized now is I was actually really underprepared for that type of writing because I knew nothing about fantasy, really. I'd played some Final Fantasy and some Zelda and watched the Lord of the Rings films, but my knowledge of fantasy is actually really slim. And now I've been reading like Malazan, Book of the Fallen, and these like big epic stuff.
Yeah.
Like I've swatted up on fantasy, and now my ability to try and capture, it's like I devised a technique for how to write cool music, but then completely forgot about the ingredients I needed.
Right.
Taking me all this time, and now I'm like super in fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons, and there can be things that happen in a D&D campaign that I'm just like, fuck man, that was such a feeling. There was such a thing there. Like when we had to betray that prince or some shit like that. Fuck, that's what my song needs to feel like. And it's been super inspiring in the studio because it's like, yeah, now I'm going back to that style of writing, and my whole new album is all based off of just little fantasy feelings, pretty much.
That's so cool, man. I'm really excited to hear it. I think a lot of other people will be as well. Is there anything else you want to get out there? Anything you want to tell people before we get out of here?
No, thank you, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, man. This was great. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if I will watch this. It seems quite long.
Yeah, it's a little long, yeah. You're not a podcast person?
I do go in and listen to interviews that I do, because there'll be something like, I know after we stop recording, I'll be like, what did I say about Black Lives Matter? Was it good? Like, did I just fuck myself over? Because, you know, it's like the way I talk is I just sort of ramble on, and sometimes I get scared that I haven't been able to eloquently put a point.
I relate to that, yeah.
But generally it's all right. I feel good about this. I don't feel like I've made any controversial comments.
No, man. I think you did great, and yeah, sure. I really enjoyed it.
And yeah, all good. Really appreciate it. It was a good chat. I really enjoyed that.
Good, man. Me too. Great talking to you.
That's fine. All right, take it easy, man.
All right, man. Peace.
All right, see you in a bit.
All right, that's the show. Shout out to Flux Pavilion. thank you for coming on the show, man. I really enjoyed that. For everybody out there listening, don't forget, you gotta tune in to Flux Pavilion, his From the Lab series, his live stream show. Head over to his Twitch to catch the stream. Head over to his YouTube to catch the rebroadcast. All the links for that, as well as his new music. Check out the new one with Feed Me and all of his other classics. All the links for that in the description of this episode. Also in that description, you can come join the Back-to-Back Discord server. I want you to come chat with me and the amazing Back-to-Backer community. We would love to have you. Come talk to us. Come share your music. Come share any music you're feeling. It is all good. My name is Willy Joy. You can also hit me up on social media if you would like, at Willy Joy or at Back-to-Back Pod. If that's too public, if you got something private, something spicy, you can hit me up directly. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address. Advice or comments or questions or whatever too. That's fine. But, mainly spicy stuff. That's what I want. All right. And I think that about does it for this week. Look, things are heating up again in the USA. Coronavirus going crazy right now. Please be safe. Please wear a mask. If there's a single person listening to this show who is not down with wearing a mask, please hit me up, talk to me. We got to fix this, man. Wear the mask, stay healthy, stay safe, wash your hands, social distancing. We got to do it, man. It's the only way we're going to get through this. And the more we do it, the faster things can go back to normal. So that's it. I know I don't got to tell most of you guys that. But if we stay up on it, man, if we stay up on each other, that's how we all get better. I think that's the theme of this show this week. So much love to everybody out there. I love you guys. Lots of great episodes coming up soon. Stay tuned. Until next Tuesday, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and I will talk to you then. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.